The storm brings strangers. The storm had rolled in faster than anyone expected. Winds cut through the valley, swallowing cell signals and trapping travelers between mountains. Martha Dugan, a housekeeper who'd spent 30 years cleaning other people's homes, was huddled by the window, watching her kerosene lamp flicker. She lived alone now. Her husband, Earl, had died 5 years back from a heart attack, and her only son, Caleb, had stopped calling after losing everything to gambling. The world had forgotten her, but Martha hadn't forgotten how to care. That night, she was heating soup made from old vegetables when she heard it, a car horn. Then another. Then another. Through the white curtain of snow, she saw headlights, 15 of them, glimmering like eyes in the dark. Martha's first instinct was fear. Who drives luxury cars through a blizzard? When the first knock came, it nearly shattered her heart. A tall man in a soaked overcoat stood there, his suit visible beneath it. His shoes, Italian leather, were ruined from the snow. Behind him, others shivered, men and women dressed far too fine for a storm, silk scarves, Rolex watches, diamond earrings. "Please," said the man. "We're stranded. The road's blocked for miles." Martha blinked. "You can't be serious. In this weather?" He nodded. "We'll pay whatever it takes. We just need shelter till morning." She looked past them, 15 souls, all shivering, all human. And then her instincts, her mother's heart, took over. "The fire's small, but it's warm," she said. "Come in." The guests. They filled her house like ghosts in a forgotten chapel. Every inch of her small living room was crowded, suits, gowns, coats tossed on broken chairs. Martha found blankets, served thin soup, and apologized when it ran out. They smiled politely, but she noticed it, a quiet pride, the kind of look rich people give when they're out of place. One of them, a young woman named Elena Brooks, complained, "I can't believe there's no Wi-Fi here." Another, Daniel Hawthorne, grumbled, "We should have gone to the lodge, not this dump." But there was one man, Henry Voss, an older gentleman with tired eyes, who watched Martha differently. "You live here alone?" he asked quietly as she poured him tea. She nodded. "Been alone a while now." Henry smiled faintly. "You have more grace in this one house than most of us ever bought with money." The others rolled their eyes, but he didn't care. He'd seen something in Martha, the dignity of someone who's endured pain without bitterness. Midnight confessions. As the storm howled outside, conversation turned strange. The millionaires began talking, not about money, but regret. Maybe it was the darkness, maybe the fear of dying in that storm. Elena whispered that her father built their empire by cheating his workers. Daniel confessed he'd ruined a friend's life in a corporate deal. Another man, trembling, said he hadn't spoken to his daughter in 10 years because she married a teacher instead of an investor. They all looked to Martha like children seeking forgiveness. And she listened, quietly, with the still patience of someone who had nothing left to prove. At one point, Henry asked softly, "Martha, if you could have one wish, what would it be?" She smiled sadly. "That my son would walk through that door and tell me he's found his way again." The room fell silent. The letter in the drawer. Around 2 a.m., as Martha fetched more candles, Henry noticed something, an envelope tucked inside a drawer labeled, "For Caleb, if he ever comes home." He didn't open it, but when Martha returned, he asked, "Who's Caleb?" "My boy," she said softly. "Lost himself after Earl died. He thought he could fix our debts gambling. Instead, he left us with nothing." Her eyes glistened. "I wrote him letters every week. Never mailed them. Thought maybe if he ever came home, he'd know I never stopped waiting." Henry said nothing, but his face changed, like a man realizing something unbearable. A knock after midnight. At exactly 3:07 a.m., there came another knock at the door. Martha froze. The storm was still raging. Who could it be now? When she opened it, a young man stood there, thin, trembling, his clothes soaked. His eyes were bloodshot but familiar. "Mom," he whispered. "Caleb?" The house went silent. The millionaires watched as she ran to him, clutching him like a child. "I'm sorry," he cried. "I didn't know where else to go. The bus broke down, I walked 5 miles. She didn't let him finish. "You came home, that's all that matters." The room, 15 wealthy strangers, watched the poorest woman they'd ever met forgive more freely than any of them knew how to love. Henry Voss turned away, his jaw trembling. The morning of 135 cars. By dawn, the storm had stopped. The world outside glistened like glass, sunlight spilling over miles of white snow. The millionaires, humbled, stood around the breakfast table, eating oatmeal Martha had somehow stretched to feed them all. One by one, they pressed cash into her hand. She refused every dollar. "Keep your money," she said. "I didn't take you in for that." Henry, however, stayed behind after the others left. He reached into his coat and placed a single envelope on her table. "Just read it later," he said. "You've reminded us what real wealth is." Then he left. A house that wouldn't stay quiet. By 10 a.m., Martha heard it again, the sound of engines. But this time, not 15. Over 100 cars came winding up the snowy road, BMWs, trucks, limos, even local taxis. People stepping out, some in suits, others in uniforms. Cameras. Reporters. Martha stumbled outside, shielding her eyes. What in heaven? Henry Voss stood at the front, smiling. "You said you didn't want money. But you can't refuse help." He raised his hand, and dozens of people began unloading boxes, tools, and materials. "Who are all these people?" Martha asked, shaking. Henry said quietly, "Investors, workers, and families your kindness touched last night. You took in 15 millionaires, but each one made a call this morning." She stared at him, stunned. Henry continued, "You don't remember me, do you? 20 years ago, your husband Earl worked for my company. When he died, I was too proud to visit. I came last night to see what humility looked like." He smiled faintly. "And I found it. The truth about the letter." Henry handed her another piece of paper, the one from her drawer. "I saw this," he admitted softly. "I thought your son might never come back, so I had someone find him." Martha's eyes widened. "You?" He nodded. "Caleb didn't arrive by accident. I made sure he did." She gasped, tears streaming. "You brought my boy home? I owed your family a debt that money couldn't pay." The crowd around them began clapping softly as Martha fell to her knees, crying into Henry's coat. A mansion reborn. Over the next few days, contractors and volunteers transformed her old mansion. The roof was repaired, walls painted, a proper heating system installed. But the most unbelievable part came a week later, the signboard installed by the front gate. The Dugan Haven, a shelter for stranded travelers. Funded by the Voss Foundation, run by Martha and Caleb. Reporters called it the miracle of Maple Ridge. But to Martha, it was simply the night 15 lost souls found their way home. Epilogue, the meaning of 135 cars. A year later, Martha stood at the same window, now overlooking a line of parked cars outside the shelter, exactly 135 of them, filled with people who'd come to volunteer, donate, and share food during the next storm. Her son stood beside her, clean, sober, smiling. "Mom," he said softly, "you ever think about that night?" She smiled. "Every day, Caleb. Because that night, I thought I was saving strangers. But really, God sent them to save me." The camera pulls back through the falling snow, the house glowing warm in the distance, a symbol of kindness reborn.